everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I read 10 books in the month of June. Let's talk about them. Okay, so the first book I read in the month of June was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this one was a flop for me, which made me really sad because I read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom when I was in high school, so it's been a while now. And I loved those books. I thought they were so good. So I was excited to read another one by Leigh Bardugo, and I just really didn't like it. Basically, you're following this girl named Alex, which is short for Galaxy, by the way, which I think is kind of stupid, but that's besides the point. And she is a part of these secret societies at Yale where they do ritualistic type things with ghosts to give power to people, basically, who go to Yale. And they have beneficiaries, and it's all about the wealth and who gets what power and whatnot. And there's things that happens, and she has to solve issues. And I don't know. I just found the main character kind of annoying, I guess. I don't know. And I thought that the setup sounded interesting, but the execution was just weird for me. And also there was a lot of mentions of sexual assault that really threw me off guard and were really uncomfortable, and I tried to just kind of skip through them because I just didn't want to read about that, and it was kind of graphic, and that was just something that I didn't enjoy reading. And overall, I don't know, I thought that the villain was kind of lame, and it took me a while to get into it, and I just didn't love it. And I'm sorry that I don't have anything more eloquent to say about it, but that's basically it. The next book that I read was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed this one. It is weird. Basically, you're following this character named Piranesi who lives in this, like, marble mansion that also has the ocean in it. And he is visited by one other person called the Other, and you kind of learn what's going on, and it's very strange and it's very short, and I really loved it. The next book I read was The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeysett by Annie Lyons. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. Listen, the formula of books that I tend to love that I'm noticing, which there's another one later in this month too that I really loved. Old person who's slightly grouchy meets somebody who makes them want to continue living the rest of their life even though they are old, and they're able to find happiness, and it's very heartwarming and it's very wholesome, and you just love the characters. And that is how I feel about The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeysett. There was some very good depth to it besides just being like a cute little wholesome story, and I really loved reading it. Pretty similar vibes to A Man Called O by Frederick Parkman, which is one of my favorite books ever. Yeah, I just like those types of books, I guess, about old people being cute and finding friends. The next book I read was The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brommer. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. Overall, I enjoyed it. I talked about it in my failed 24-hour reading challenge video, and I found it interesting. Basically, you are following this girl named Clover, and she's a death doula, which means that she helps people who are dying pass in peace, and helps their families accept that and kind of everything surrounding somebody dying. And she really struggles to connect in her personal life, so she kind of only has these people around her who are dying. I really enjoyed the conversations in this book, and I thought that it made me think a lot, and I enjoyed the way that it talked about death and the characters and what regrets they had and how they wish they lived their life and how they were grateful for the way they lived their lives and all these things, and I thought that that was very interesting. The main character I did not like, though, which is why I knocked it down a star, just because she overreacted to everything, and it was like, just chill out, dude. And she kind of redeemed herself by the end, but I found myself being like, okay, let's get on with it, because some of her reactions to things were so over the top that I was annoyed. The next book that I read was Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. I'm not rating this one. I also talked about it more in depth in my failed 24-hour reading video, but I'll just quickly touch on it here. And that is that I understand the importance of this book. I understand why it's a classic. I understand why it was written and why it's important to consider the atrocities of war, but it was not enjoyable to read for me whatsoever, which I think is kind of the point. I think that you're supposed to be really uncomfortable, and I was. So I think that it did what it set out to do, but I just don't feel comfortable rating it because, you know, did I enjoy reading it? No, not really at all. But I can see the importance of it, and I understand how it's a classic. So that's why I'm not rating it, and I think if it's something you're interested in, definitely read it. Those are kind of my complicated thoughts on that one. The next book that I read is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I read a few T. Kingfisher books this year, and I've really loved all of them. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. It is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. And I thought it was so fun. It was so creepy, it was so atmospheric, and it was so weird. And I like weird books, and this was just right up my alley. It was my brand of weird. And I just really enjoyed it. The only thing I will say, some of the background stuff about this fictional country that you're in was too much for me. And since it's such a short book, I was like, I don't really care about all this stuff. I just want to know what's happening at the house and in the story. And so that took me out of the story a little bit, just because it is fairly short. And so I thought that maybe that could have been taken out. But other than that, I really, really liked it. And I'm looking forward to reading more from T. Kingfisher in the future because I really love her writing. The next book that I read was Keeper of Enchanted Rooms by Charlie Holmberg. This was gifted to me by my friend Harmony. I won a giveaway that she did on Instagram, and I was so excited because I never win anything. And she sent me this, and it was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And you guys, okay, if you've been around here, you know I'm not a romance girly. I don't like romance. I don't read romance. This book had a fair amount of romance in it, and I actually loved it. And I think that's because it was slow burn. It was not spicy at all. The characters didn't like each other just in a sexual way, which is, I think, what I don't like about a lot of romance, is that I think a lot of modern romances, at least, in my opinion, lean way too far into the lust aspect. And it's not real love because they only want each other for sexual purposes. And I don't really agree with that. I think that's pretty objectifying to both people in the relationship. And so what I liked about this so much is that they liked each other for who they were, and it was just about their connection more so than about any sort of sexual tension. And so that's just something I really enjoyed. This one is about a man who inherits a house, and it is magical. And a woman comes who is a part of this magical union to help him kind of give things under control, and it goes from there. So it was pretty good. There was also some really intense parts that I really enjoyed that kind of brought a more thrilling aspect into it, and I was like, okay, I'm here for this. So yeah, I think there's a second book coming out soon, or maybe it is out, and I think I will read it because I really enjoyed the first one. The next book I read was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I've only read one other Riley Sager. It was The House Across the Lake, and I think I gave that one a 4, maybe, or a 5. I can't remember, but I really enjoyed it, and I know that one is pretty controversial because a lot of people hated the ending. And I'm curious to see what people think about this one, but I really, really liked it. It was so twisty. That's kind of, I've only read one other Riley Sager, but from what I've heard from everybody and kind of the consensus on Riley Sager is that he has the most insane twists in his books. And this was that. It was twist after twist after twist. I was reading it, and I was sitting next to my mother-in-law, and I was like, and she was like, what? And I'm like, plot twist. And then I was like, double plot twist. I was freaking out, and she was like, okay, I'm glad you're having a good time, Sandy. But yeah. Okay, sorry, my card ran out of storage. I don't remember exactly where it cut me off, but basically The Only One Left, you are following a young woman who is a caretaker for the elderly, and the woman that she is taking care of has allegedly murdered her whole family decades before, and she is ready to come out and tell the truth. This book was so good. It's so intriguing and so crazy, and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Again, this fits into the category of old person finds someone who makes them want to stay alive and live the rest of their life with vigor. I love this book. I loved the octopus, Marcellus. He was so sweet. I loved him. I just loved him, you know? This is one where the characters really got to me and I really, really loved them and I really rooted for them and I wanted them to be successful. So this one, you were following an elderly woman. Her name is, what's her name? Tova. Her name is Tova. She works at the aquarium as a janitor at night, even though she doesn't really need the money. It's just something she does to keep her busy, basically. And she kind of forms a connection with this octopus, and then a bunch of other stuff happens with some other characters and things, and it was just so good, and I loved it. So you should read it. If you were thinking about reading it, and you were like, oh, I've heard this book is really good, should I read it? Yes, you should. It's amazing. I loved it. The next book that I read was Atalanta by Jennifer Saint, and this one, oh, you guys, this one makes me so sad because I loved Ariadne and Electra by Jennifer Saint, and I was so excited. This was like my most anticipated release for the entire year. I was so excited to read it, and it just fell flat for me, and I'm so sad because I wanted to love it so much. I gave this a 3 out of 5, and kind of my main complaints with this book, well, here, let me tell you what it's about first. So you're following Atalanta. She is one of the hunters of Artemis, and she goes with Jason and the Argonauts to go get the Golden Fleece, and you're kind of following her journey. My main gripe with this book was, okay, listen. A lot of these Greek retellings are feminist retellings, and most of the time I'm okay with that. The type of feminism I'm not okay with is when feminists that act like being a mother and being a wife is less than, and that it's not as good, and it's not, you're not a real feminist or you're not a real woman, and you can't take care of yourself and you're not being independent if you're a wife and you're a mother. And I just don't like that. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's okay. I think that if you really care about women, then you're happy with the fact that they can make their own decisions. And that includes being a wife and mother, and that doesn't make them less than. So that was kind of my main gripe, because that was throughout the story, was over and over again, Atalanta's character was like, that woman is weak because she wants a man. And I just don't agree with that. And then there was also some mentions of sexual assault in this book, and the way that Artemis treated these women who were sexually assaulted, and it was not, she did not treat them well, and definitely made it seem like it was their fault. They weren't strong enough, they weren't fast enough, they couldn't get away quick enough. And Atalanta never acknowledges that that is not the right mindset, and that Artemis really sucks for that, to be honest. So yeah. That was kind of the main issue that I had with it. I could go into depth. This is one I also ranted to my mother-in-law about. She listened to me talk about all the things that I didn't like about this book for a long time, because there was things that just really got under my skin, but it would be spoilers if I talked about them. So, you know, if you want to have a spoilery conversation, I will have a spoilery conversation with you about this book. But yeah, I'm just bummed by this one. I really wanted to love it, but I will say I will still read what Jennifer Saint puts out next, because I do love Greek retellings and I did really love her other books. So that was a bummer for me, and I'm really sad that it was, but what can you do? Okay, so I just talked for like 5 minutes about a book that I read, and then I realized that I finished it in July, so I'm not including it in this video. So Atalanta was the last book that I read in the month of June. Unfortunately, I ended on kind of a sad one, I guess, one that didn't work for me, but so far the 2 books that I've read in July have been total wins, and so I guess you'll have to tune in next time to see what they are. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry that I have not posted anything recently. If you saw on my Instagram, if you follow me there at Bloom Journals, you will know that I moved. I'm moving. I'm in the process of moving, and things have been crazy, and so that's why I haven't filmed, but I am filming renovation and house makeover content right now, and it's so fun. And it will be here at some point. I don't know when, because we have to there's contractors and things and schedules, but I'm filming it all, and it will be very, very exciting. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!